Hey everyone, Sean Deveney from Heavy Sports here. I've got our NBA insider, Steve Bulpett with us. How are you, Steve?
I am fine, sir. How are you?
Good. We're going to talk a little NBA. We're going to especially talk about the Celtics and their offseason and sort of what's next for them. Interesting that they've gone how they've gone about things in the last 10 days or so, bringing in a couple of veterans who were first-round draft picks, kind of flamed out, and now are trying to get back into the league. One is Bruno Caboclo, who was drafted by the Raptors a few years ago. Didn't really pan out. Had a little bit of a chance with the Grizzlies. Didn't pan out there either. But he's going to get a look. 26 years old. Noah Vonley, another guy who played in China last year, after having a couple of decent seasons in the NBA. He's going to get a look in training camp. Of course, we have Kabengele, who was on the Summer League team, signed to a two-way contract, 25 years old. This approach of kind of putting a bunch of guys, sort of similar in some aspects, into training camp and letting them sort of duke it out for a role on the team, is that it's not something you see. It's definitely an NFL thing, not something we see in the NBA that much. Is this a good approach for them?
Well, they're trying to find a linebacker, so the NFL approach is kind of what they're going for, I think. No, look, they're throwing a plate of linguine on the wall and seeing if something sticks there. It's a, I was going to say it's a no risk for, limited reward, but that's all you need is a limited reward out of this. If you can get someone that, can help you in a pinch. I personally, I thought they might keep around Trevion Williams, we saw at Summer League, but he ended up going elsewhere. I think Portland, right? Golden State. Oh,
yeah.
And it was someone out west.
Yeah.
Anyway, after you get past Mississippi, doesn't really matter. But can one of these guys fill the role? I mean, right now, Luke Cornett is in that spot, and I certainly think they're going to be open to looking at other people as well, who might become available and might shake loose between now and whenever, really, because there's no real rush here, I don't think.
Yeah, Cornett isn't guaranteed until January 10th. So they've got some time to figure out, if he's a guy who can be that third big guy. There's really no harm in bringing in Vonley, Caboclo, having Kabengele, who's the two-way guy, having him in that mix. They're all 25, 26 years old. They're sort of on that same timeline as Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So, if you get one who's going to stick, then they can kind of grow and mesh with those guys as we go forward. So, it is interesting. I do wonder, do you have any thoughts on why more teams don't take that approach? Is it just a matter of you've got such limited number of roster spots, you kind of fill them up and then you say, okay, these are the guys we have, or why don't more teams take that approach?
Well, like you say, limited roster spots, but also limited time. Camp isn't what it used to be in terms of, length, and, you're not seeing the two-a-days and all that, those kind of fun things. Celtics used to be, the first week was filled with two-a-days. So, you get your reps in, you get them in quickly. You don't have a time, you got to get your guys ready, and you want to get them a lot of reps. And do you really have time to be investigating these other people? So, I think that's why you're seeing less of it. And like you say, a lot of these guys are on guarantees or partial guarantees, and you've got and the number is a little bit bigger because you've got your G League people that, and your two-way contracts and all these things. So if you want to keep any measure of control over a guy, you're kind of giving him something to get him into camp and to keep him for a bit.
Kind of going along with that, there was last month, obviously they had the $17 million Evan Fournier trade exception that expired. Some people threw up their hands and said they're being cheap and all that. We've talked about that before. It's sort of the realities of that. They do have in their back pockets, though, 2 trade exceptions. Of course, he can't combine them. So, the maximum one is $6.9 million. The other one is $5.9 million. January 19th, that's from the Juan Hernan Gomez trade. That's when that one expires. $5.9 million from the Dennis Schroeder trade. That's February 10th. That's when that one expired. To me, that's plan B. If they can get some of these guys to work out, they don't have to touch that. They don't have to add to the tax bill and all that. They can let those things expire. Do you think that they're planning on using those, or do you think that that's a break glass in case of emergency sort of situation?
I was thinking of that exact same analogy as you were saying that. I think it's there if you need it. And the best thing for them would be not to need it at all, right? But the important thing here is, I think we kind of discussed it a bit when we were talking about, bringing in those guys, Vonley and Caboclo for camp. What the Celtics need out of this is people who can make sure that Al Horford doesn't get used up during the regular season. Guys who can, give you spot minutes here and there, but enough so that you can keep on winning, that you can keep your team playing well, playing at the level you want. And you've got to find rest, definitely rest for Al Horford, and possibly also, and most likely as well for Rob Williams, because he's had his injury issues, and you want to be a little careful with him. Hopefully he's past what happened, and that he's going to get stronger. But you can't be burning out an Al Horford age, 36, right? You got to be just erring on the side of caution with these guys, because the important games are the playoffs, and you saw where how fatigue can enter into this.
Yeah, I wonder how they're going to approach that next year, because there's a couple ways you can do it, and certainly you can combine ways, and that is you can give rest days, strategic rest days, which a lot of teams, maybe not a lot, but certainly enough teams do, and which the league isn't very happy about, but has shown to be beneficial. So there's that, or you can manage minutes. You can cut down Al Horford's minutes per game, which of course means you're going to have to find other ways to fill those minutes each game, each night out. So do you take a couple of games here and there and say, all right, we're not having Al at all, or do you say, we're going to need we're going to need somebody to take 10 minutes from him throughout the season? What do you think the approach is there for Al and maybe for Rob Williams too?
I think they will cut down Al's minutes on a per game basis. But clearly, if watching Al Horford play basketball is on your bucket list, I would be reticent to purchase a ticket for a Celtics game that's coming on the second night of a back-to-back. Yeah. Then again, he might play the second night and not play the first night. So I could be giving you hideously terrible advice right now and costing you a lot of money.
Well, just avoid either side of it.
Please let me apologize in advance for this. It's not the first mistake I've made, probably even in this conversation. But yeah, I think they're gonna, you're not gonna see Allen back-to-backs. I would bet quite a bit on that. But yeah, I do also believe that they will try to limit him when they can. They're certainly better able to limit minutes in the backcourt, but there's a situation where you're going to be looking to find minutes for guys. So that's not quite the same situation, but I think there'll be a smarter rotation going forward. And the other part too is that, players get better from year to year. I think you're going to see Ime Udoka get better in his second year at the reins, understanding how he wants to use his rotation and how he wants to play things out.
Yeah, he seemed to coach last year as if he wanted to try to win every game, and he had something to prove, which, considering the journey it took him to finally get, the number of interviews he had to finally get a job you can sort of understand that. But having gone to the finals in his first year, maybe a little less to prove. Maybe he can, be more strategic in terms of how he handles games in November, December than he was last year.
Yeah, Sean, we might be talking semantics here, but I'm not sure it's so much that he was, trying to get every game, is that he was trying not to make a mistake. Like let's not, make a substitution that kills us here, And so I do think he hung on to some veterans, hung on to veteran minutes a little bit much, Dennis Schroeder, etc. But hey, if I'm Ime Udoka, I'm feeling a heck of a lot better about myself. He should have felt good about himself last year. He's a guy that had experience and he knows what he's doing. And it was a matter of like a shooter. You got to trust yourself. You got to trust your shot. And I think he'll be better able to do that this year, just because, even though he'd been a coach before, your first time as a head coach is a different gig, different deal.
Yeah. Last thing for you, Steve, on the Celtics here. Jaylen Brown is able to sign an extension with the team this summer, from before the start of the season. Do you see that happening? Obviously, he's been in the headlines for different reasons altogether, but he could technically re-sign or sign a contract extension. Probably not as much, definitely not as much money as he could get if he waits for free agency. Do you see any kind of talks there, or do you think Jaylen has his eyes on free agency down the road?
I don't know. It's a tough call. I think look. Jaylen's certainly his own person. I think he's, a lot of other guys in the league are, part of the stream, and they go along and they judge themselves based on the parameters that are set up by other guys. They're in that vein. I think Jaylen kind of does what he wants to do and figures out what's important to him. The most likely scenario is he waits and gets the bigger payday. But also, I could see him saying, hey, look, this is what I need for life money, and I'm going to sign this thing here, but I'm going to get myself a no trade clause so that I get to have a measure of control over my environment and where I am, where I go. I have no information that that's what is in his head, but that's something I could see someone like Jaylen Brown, very much an individualist, not a guy to go along with the crowd. I could see him looking at that possibility and saying, hey, I'm going to have more money than I need anyway. I'm going to have my generational wealth. But being able to have control over your, at least your geographical destiny could be really important for him as well.
Yeah, and I guess on the flip side, if he does want to maximize how much money he could potentially make, there's something to be said for taking a 1-year extension and to cover 2024 and push his free agency back to 2025, which is when the new TV deal kicks in. And of course, we saw what happened in 2016 when that TV deal, and there will be smoothing to say it's not going to be the same thing that happened in 2016. It'll be a little different. There's not going to be the same spike in the cap. I'd be shocked if that were the case. But there will be more money there, and he'd be eligible to get a bigger slice of the pie there. So we'll see what happens with Jaylen Brown. But thanks for joining me, Steve, and thanks everybody for watching me. Again, check out heavy.com sports for all of the Celtics news. Thank you.